Well, Brian, this show will be coming out as usual at 7:45 on Monday night. But if the things hold, we were up 25 when we were shooting this. So pretty good day.
No, Randy, it's over. Haven't you heard? The dumbest guy that I went to high school with has assured me on the premium outlet for all news, Facebook, that it is the end of the road and that they will be soon bankrupt, which is what happens when a company with 36 billion cash on hand continues losing money at a pace of, let me check my notes, gaining 2 billion a quarter. So maybe there's a reason he was cheating off everyone's math tests in high school, but I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
Maybe not. And I have this sense that it's going to continue to get even better. I don't know. Maybe when you have 100 PE, it suggests that at least there's a few, like 10 million retail shareholders and maybe some institutional shareholders that think that the stock is worth what it's worth right now.
I would think that that's a reasonable conclusion. One problem that people had when predicting the slide of Tesla back when shorting was all the rage and millionaires were being made every day out of billionaires, they had this idea that Tesla was a regular stock, and it is not. The retail community for Tesla is unlike any company I've ever seen. It is a fanatical devotion, which means that when you look at the float, and at the time the float was, I don't know, uh, low, it was like 55, 60%. It really wasn't that high. It was much lower than that because you have so many ride or die investors who say, hey, if it goes down to 30, I'm not selling. And of course, in the comments on videos, you'll get these absolute clowns who routinely say, oh, it's down 30%. Bet you wish you sold, bag holder. My brother in Christ, you do not know my cost basis. I am doing just fine.
Just fine.
Eh, Just fine. And I bought in 2019 because I saw something in the company that they did not. And I still see something that they do not. And it is not, well, yes, but BYD is making a huge new factory to build cars. Yeah, too big. Too big, you could argue, for a company that has very questionable debt. But okay, let's say it's not too big. Let's say they really are building that much automotive capacity. That means BYD will absolutely be the next Toyota, but it doesn't mean they're going to be the next Tesla.
Yeah, yeah, indeed, indeed. Well, we will want to get into that whole BYD story in our part two, which may or may not be on Tuesday night, but it will be sometime this week.
Hmm.
So let's talk about what happened that might have supercharged the stock. And I'm going to say that the stock was down, down, down. It was beat up. It was, down over 50% last week on Tuesday, Wednesday. And then all of a sudden, Thursday, it started really moving up again. But then we had this event on Thursday night.
Hmm.
Elon Musk may or may not have been kind of responding to Dan Ives, where
Hmm.
Dan Ives had said, "Hey, come back, Elon. We need you to come back down to Austin and and show your face and prove that you're spending some time at least working on Tesla." I made the comment at the time that the PR that he did last week in front of the White House might have been, I don't know, he could have clocked in and out before he did that. But anyway, whatever it was, he may have been responding to the concept that Dan Ives provided. But whatever it was, he came on Thursday night and did this all hands on deck meeting, and the stock went up crazy on Friday and crazier on Monday. Um, Maybe that had something to do with it. What was your biggest takeaway from the all hands meeting?
So my friend in New Zealand called me and said, and I'm not going to do the accent. He said, did you see the all hands on deck meeting? And I said, how dare you, sir? That is disgusting language. But they pronounce deck differently than we do. So I was, okay, now I get it. I saw, oh, that's different. So it was what we needed to see. Beyond what he said, which I assume we'll go into, what we saw was a focused, a rested, a uh, youthful looking, uh, sober Elon, which is what a lot of people needed to see. They needed to see that he is not, um, that he's not disengaged. And I believe that is what we got to see. Yeah.
Well, so
And if you'd like to go into some of the specifics, you
yeah,
can.
what would so I agree with you. I think the fact that he was really kind of on top of it and interesting and spoke well, I think all that was good. But I did think that I wrote down like 12 major big takeaways from the event. I've talked about those before, but I wanted to hear what your
Sure.
specific takeaways were, the biggest ones.
Mm, okay. So on the bigger ones, I would say just that uh, the focus on production and simplification of things like the cybercab. That is an advantage that BYD doesn't have. So, for example, the new BYD factory that we've seen drone footage of is all of the old style. It is all on a single floor. It is all linear. It does not utilize cubic space. And not only is Tesla using cubic space for the production of their Model Y, they've moved past it. The Cybercab doesn't use space in any of the ways that we think of for automotive, which is going to create an absolutely tremendous advantage. The labor costs are lower in China, but cars are mostly built by robots, and robots are paid the same everywhere. Okay, a little bit more in one place or another because of power rates, but it is negligible. So I guess my biggest takeaway would be uh, really just that he's present and there. There were some things he said towards the end that I think investors might not resonate with as much. Some of the big numbers on robots, where people look at them and go, "Those numbers don't make sense to me." And we've seen Elon make some pretty bold claims in the past, and some of his timelines are. I don't remember who said it, but someone was saying that I think when Elon, this might have been John Stringer from Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley, said I think when Elon sets a timeline, it's assuming that everyone on the team will work as hard and as effectively as he does. And that's not a reasonable conclusion. You don't always want employees that are as good as you. Those are the kinds of people who leave the company and start companies to compete with you. So, yeah.
I think he does set really crazy goals, and that setting crazy goals part is I don't know that he necessarily thinks all of his employees are as good as him, but I think part of what he's doing is encouraging them or setting goals that they can all kind of go, okay, let's see if we can do that. And if his goal of doing 100 million Optimi well, maybe 4 factories, we don't know, but however many factories, if his goal of doing 100 million Optimi a year, if he misses it by half, I think we'll still be okay.
If it misses by half and 2 years, I think we're still okay.
Still okay. Still talking about a lot of robots, talking about a lot of revenue and a lot of profits. So I was impressed with the cheapest battery part, and I thought you might have had that might have been something in your wheelhouse. What did you think about the cheapest battery statement?
It's a tough one to assess. Part of the process of making a battery involves chemicals, and I imagine chemical pollution mitigation might be a little more lax in China. I haven't seen confirmation of that, but I've seen a lot of anecdotal evidence that suggests pollution from things from industrial manufacturing is not cracked down on the way it is in Western countries. That's going to give you a tremendous price advantage in China. China has such a head start on the manufacture of sophisticated batteries that is really hard to compete with. Mexico is now talking about wanting to make their own batteries to make their own car, and I'm saying, and they want to have that in at volume within 5 years. I'm saying that's unless you're partnering with someone, that's not going to happen. It's too complicated. There's a reason these batteries are in short supply. Not as short as it was, but still outside of China, definitely short supply. In terms of the cost advantage, my first thought was, well, maybe cheaper when you factor in tariffs. There's about 100% tariff on Chinese made batteries coming into the US. That gives you a 50% price disparity right there. There's going to be, I do not believe that the 4680 can be manufactured in the US for less than the cost of an LFP battery in China. The minerals alone are a big chunk of it. The efficiency is another big chunk of it. Uh, what little labor there is another chunk of it. So I think I took that to mean that when fully ramped, it will be less than 200% of what Chinese batteries cost.
I see. Okay. So one of the other thoughts that he had with regard to the battery, one of the other things he said was, we hope that somebody will make the anodes.
Mm.
Now, that was kind of a shocking, nobody's talked about this, but that was kind of a shocking statement. Wouldn't somebody need to make the anodes now? Or I assume he was talking about the dry coat anodes. So what did that mean to you, and what do you think the situation is currently?
What was the electrode that they were trying to get dry, wasn't it? Um, so that's an in-house process is the electrode. The anode, they've just been buying, but I don't know. I think it's because it's a low cost, high volume, low margin kind of item. They'd rather not spread their engineers too thin. There is a if engineers could be cloned, think of all the projects that Tesla would be happily tackling right now. Twice as many, 5, 10 times, who knows? But there are only so many hours in a day, and your engineers only have so much headspace, and there are only so many engineers that you're able to effectively attract and retain and put to good use. So there's I'm confident they would, you know, they'd love to continue purchasing steel rather than create their own steel mine and refinery. Uh, there are parts of the business they just don't see a benefit in going into.
Right, right, right. So another thought that while I was listening, that your face came up in my mind. I don't know why that happened. It was about the semi truck. He said he'd be talking about millions of semi trucks, and this has been a discussion with Brian Wong and I about, how many would they make. I have been ridiculed for saying a million a year. Brian Wong has been much more ridiculed by saying they would be making 4 million per year, which is the total output of all large trucks in the entire world. He thinks that the combination of scale and autonomy would cause every single truck to be a Tesla truck eventually. Anyway, what do you think, based on what we're seeing so far in Reno? What does he mean by millions? Does he mean millions per year, or does he mean millions at some point? Or what is he talking about?
He doesn't mean millions per year. I'm confident of that. If there are 4 million sold globally per year, the Tesla Semi will never sell 4 million, even if all of the other manufacturers go out of business. And that's because the truck has twice the utility of the trucks currently being sold. You could do it with 2 million instead. So, and that's something to consider is the more of them you deploy, the fewer of them you need to deploy, especially if these are going to run 1 million miles, which is already kind of what semis are expected to do. So these aren't promising more utility, more total miles. So until the entire market shifts over, then what you'll see is trucks turning over twice as quickly because they run twice as many miles. But there are so many wins to this when you take the human out of the equation. Well, at 75, which by the way, semis are permitted to drive in much of the country. We live on the West Coast. A lot of West Coast states have a separate lower speed limit for semis. Part of that may be due to our propensity for inclement weather or our countless hills and valleys, but there are a lot of places where you can really haul. And at 75, you're going to lose so much range, so much fuel economy. It's less noticeable when you just pump for an extra 2 minutes instead. But if you're stopping an hour early, it's a lot more noticeable. Well, when you take the human out of the equation, you don't have to go 75. You can go 55. And still, a Tesla autonomous semi driving coast to coast at 55 is going to beat a human operated one going 95 because the human has to stop for 14 hours a day. That's that is it's not the how long it takes to charge the truck that you need to worry about. It's how long you need to recharge the driver.
There you go. All right. The other thing that came up this week, I don't think it was that night. I think this was in a Sandy Monroe video you and I just discussed. And that was the idea that we are going to get 5-second throughput on the cybercabs. This would be obviously incredibly huge in terms of the impact on the cost per car because of you've got this cost in the car that has to do with the capex of the building and all of the things that go into the building and into the manufacturing facility. So, what were your thoughts when you heard them say 5-second throughput?
I had to stop and do the math and figure out why it makes sense. In China, they're doing 35 seconds on the Model Y, but that's out of two lines. You've got two lines running essentially in parallel, and every 70 seconds, a car comes out of each one. It balances to 35. This isn't using a line per se. This is using something different than a line. This is using, so really you could have 5, 10, 20 lines building cars concurrently, each one running at 35, 40 seconds each, but really it'd be quite fast. The limiting factor is not only 𝐓𝐿, but it is also the slowest part of the process. All of those processes are still going to take 35 seconds. It's the fact that they can have 5 lines side by side, cranking them out, maybe 10, and without using up a ton of extra space. So effectively, it's just more lines. You're not going to get to the point where each station is doing 5-second jobs. It doesn't.
Mhm.
You run out of time. It's
Right, right.
impractical. But the nice thing there is, if you've got 5 lines side by side instead of 2, if one of them goes down, your production doesn't drop by 50%. It drops by 20%.
Yeah, that would be true. Very, very cool. Anything else that came out of the meeting on Thursday night, or anything else in that kind of general category that you thought was interesting?
Dojo. I've had a lot of people asking me, where is Dojo? And I had told them the last we heard, it had been deployed somewhere, not in Texas, not part of the supercluster there, but somewhere. It was in use, and we got confirmation that it is in use, but that Dojo 2 is what they're really excited about. When I talked with the senior chip designer from IBM a year and a half ago, I asked him, Dojo, is it real? Is it any good? Is it revolutionary? What is it? And he said that he had to it was his job to tear into it when it first showed up on screen to determine if it infringed on any of their IBM patents. And he said it didn't.
Hmm.
And I said, well, it's taken 5 years. What's the holdup? He said, that's a normal development cycle.
Mm.
That is just how long it takes. And I said, is it revolutionary? And he said, if it had been released the day they showed it, yes, but you can't release it on that timeline. And over those 5 years, everyone else has other amazing things they're working on that they just haven't shown you. So what it appears to be is that by the time Dojo was done, NVIDIA had caught up or surpassed it. Clearly surpassed it, or they wouldn't be buying
Right,
them at all.
right.
So Dojo 2, of course, entered development the second Dojo 1 was done. And that will hopefully be a step forward. It is unclear if this is money well spent yet, or if any of the lessons from it are going to be monetizable in some way in the future.
Other,
So the
other than Elon saying that he was uh, more excited or more enthusiastic about it. No longer, I think, seeing it as a maybe someday it could, but it sounded like he was a level above that now.
Not to me. To me, he sounded as enthusiastic and excited as he did about Dojo 1. But the bottom line is, even 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 though the NVIDIA chips cost a fortune, if they're able to do the same number of operations, but with substantially less power, then that cost savings is still real, even though you're paying more for the chips themselves. So we'll see what Dojo 2 is. In the end, I'm not worried about it. Clearly, it's not something crucial to the survival of the company. But yeah, when you figure how expensive it is to operate compute at this scale, at this level, every bit helps.
So did you think that the reason for Friday's run up and maybe the reason for today's run up had anything to do with Elon's attitude and his enthusiasm and the things that he reported on Thursday night? Or did you just think that was one piece in the puzzle?
Well, it's always one piece in the puzzle, but I think this is by far the biggest piece. I don't think it's what he said. I think it's how he said it. I
Mhm.
think people wanted to see a present, focused, rested, sober Elon, and that's what they saw. That's what Dan Ives wanted to see. I
Mhm.
need to see that you're still there, at least in your head, and he is. That I think was reasonably apparent. Uh, and of course, you always get the cynic saying, "Oh, he's just there to pump the stock." I mean, if that's what you call reassuring investors, then I guess, but all of the big days that have been held in the past, Investor Day, AI Day, Battery Day, none of those moved the stock. But those were all scheduled, and we had a reasonable expectation of what was going to be said. And this time we had no expectations, and it was not scheduled.
Yes, indeed. So, all right. So but we've had a continued run up today. Any thoughts? And I know that you and I don't normally talk that much about the stock price and what's happening on any given day, but it's a very big run up today. Did you have any thoughts? When you got up and saw the numbers, did you go, well, I bet it's because of this or that or the other?
No, I did see the numbers this morning, and I thought, market's irrational. Sometimes it goes up for no good reason. Sometimes it goes down for no good reason. Uh, and in a week, today's movements won't matter.
That's true. That's true. Somebody was arguing with me back and forth this morning, and I said, you know what? As good as this is, it's irrelevant because it's all about Robotaxi and Optimus.
It's only relevant if you're closing on a house and you need your down payment. And oh, good news, you just got an extra, $10,000 of stock appreciation that you weren't going to have.
Yeah, that would be relevant.
Yeah. Or if you've got uh, options that are expiring soon, it might be relevant. I don't I don't do options because I'm not a gambling man.
I see. I see. Well, for on that note, be sure and follow him over on Futuraza. You know, when I put in Futuraza, there are other Futuraza things out there. Did you know that? When I
Oh,
type it in into Google,
mm,
other Futurazas. So you know what? I'm just giving you some recommendations out there. When you're looking for him on YouTube or in general, put in Futuraza and then put Tesla.
mhm.
That will get it. That will get boom. You will get him just immediately like that on YouTube and on X and so many other places.
Well, I'm looking at it, and what I'm seeing is that all of our search results are catered to us. So I am seeing just me, but
Good. Well,
I
I'm
but
glad.
I understand that people who don't already have me on their radar may have different results.
That's true. That's true. Okay. All right. So thank you, Brian, as always, for jumping on board. And I think this will be helpful to people to further understand what that meeting was about and how it's impacting. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.